Hey everybody, and welcome to Kent versus US. In this first micro lecture on court cases, we are just going to do a short but sweet covering of Kent versus US, which occurred in 1959. So Morris Kent was a 14-year-old who was already involved in the juvenile justice system. He had been placed on probation for several robberies and burglaries, and he had been adjudicated guilty of committing those, or excuse me, adjudicated delinquent of committing those acts. 2 years later, while still on probation at the age of 16, Kent was arrested for burglary, robbery, and rape. This time, the juvenile court waived him into the adult court. And remember, waiver means that we are now removing you from the juvenile court and we're trying you as an adult. They didn't hold a hearing before they committed waiver or committed to the waiver. They didn't consult with Kent or Kent's attorneys or Kent's parents. There was no fact finding. There was no investigation into whether or not this case should be tried in the adult court. And there was no statement from the juvenile court as to why they were waiving Kent into the adult court. They just waived him. He was then tried in the adult court. And he was convicted and sentenced to 30 to 90 years in prison in the adult incarceration. Kent subsequently appealed his circumstance, and that series of appeals went all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. And he and his attorneys argued that he did not receive due process of law regarding his waiver into the adult court. SCOTUS ruled in Kent's favor, arguing that the juvenile court cannot willy-nilly waive juveniles into the adult court. You can't just make a decision and say, you yes, you no, or you can't just waive somebody and not provide some sort of justification or do any investigation. There literally needs to be an investigation into the child's background, into the circumstance at hand. There needs to be discussion with prosecutor, defense attorney, and parents. In short, giving him due process of law, that there has to be a process that the juvenile court must follow. They can't just shoot from the hip and say, some of you will, some of you won't, randomly. As a result, SCOTUS provide due process in the form of a waiver hearing, and they said that anybody in the juvenile court who comes up subject to waiver must be subject to a waiver hearing where all of those things are investigated. All of those things I previously discussed are investigated. There must be an investigation into the facts of each case, and the state must, act, which we've already said, as parens patriae. And part of acting in parens patriae, acting as the parent in the best interest of the child's rehabilitation and treatment, is respecting their due process rights. Kent was the beginning of a landslide of due process rights for juveniles in the juvenile justice system.